We've got some great examples, though, haven't we, of people who've actually worked on specific projects or challenges that are work-based. And maybe we should share with the listeners a couple of those, Alex, a few that you've worked on over the years and actually currently as well.
A couple spring to mind. One was a few years ago now, we worked in a large childcare organisation, didn't we?
Yes.
And one of the action learning facilitators that we trained there, she then led a company-wide action learning program to change the culture of the organisation. And in particular, her focus was child safety. And the action learning program achieved a culture change such that every individual in the organisation accepted responsibility for child safety, which I always kind of get a shiver down my spine when I say that, because we can belong to an organisation that does good work, right? Like this organisation was incredible, really, really. They were a fantastic childcare organisation, are a fantastic childcare organisation, and they did great work. But it can be easy to be on the periphery of that content and think, well, I'm just the finance assistant, I'm just the cook, whatever. So I'm not responsible here for child safety. It's not my thing. But to change the culture so that everyone was responsible for child safety just created a whole new dynamic. Those that were at the forefront, at the kind of the coalface, as it were, of delivering childcare, didn't feel so alone in their world and in their job. They didn't feel so vulnerable, and also, they got support. They got support from the wider organisation. So we're all in this together. It's everybody's responsibility. So that culture change was significant, and it came through the process of, we trained the action learning facilitators, who then, like you were saying, then go out and create action learning sets, and they facilitate them. And in this particular example, those action learning sets were all working on the same problem or the same question. And earlier we were talking about sometimes action learning sets are a group of individuals working on their individual questions, and sometimes an action learning set is a group of individuals that are all working on the same question.
Yeah. So the organisation you described that we worked with were led by a very strong and, I would say, visionary woman who recognised that she could deploy action learning in order to bring about the sort of change that you've described around child safety, but in the process to empower a lot of other women in the organisation who became action learning facilitators themselves. And of course, they were facilitating groups with women who became empowered as well to make change happen. So it really had an impact at a culture change level. And there was a kind of social and inclusion aspect to it as well.
Yeah. And, talking about inclusion, one of the other projects that springs to mind, one of the other action learning questions that one of our colleagues has recently been working on is about how to be more inclusive with hybrid working. And in fact, her question was about engagement, but engagement and inclusion are really closely related, aren't they? And her question was, how do I, as the leader, encourage more engagement from my team, given that they work in a hybrid environment? And that was her question. So that was her action learning question.
And it was when she crafted that question at the start of the process, when you have to scope your question, you could see people in the learning set relating to it as well. So even though it was her question that she was asking for help on, you could see other set members realising, well, I faced that challenge as well. And so even if people are working on different questions, quite often what happens is people realise, I'm really interested in your question as well. So there is a kind of, there's a synergy there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and what I liked about her particular response to her own question was how agile she was.
Yes.
You know, we were you mentioned earlier, Richard, that action learning, and of course the emphasis is on action. Yeah, we don't just sit around and talk about stuff. You know, we leave our set and go and take action. And there's an accountability that happens in the set around that as well. And she immediately took relatively small actions to start with, to kick off different events, different kinds of meetings, social gatherings, that kind of thing, that just made people feel more included and engaged, even though they were hybrid workers.
So that's
and
really
she
interesting.
did it immediately.
And I recall now what she did was she took action, and then she went to the Sky and read some of the latest research around hybrid working, and she connected some of the thinking with her experience through action, which is kind of interesting as an educational sort of format, because you're starting with the action and the reality on the ground before going to the theory, whereas traditionally, educationally, we often think about the need to get lots of theory knowledge, and then maybe think about how you might apply it, or maybe not even do that, just sort of hold the knowledge. So this is a really good example of theory follows the action rather than starting with lots